Hello, everyone. Welcome to a very exciting interview today that I have Dom Purpura here, who is the CEO and founder of Mela, a watermelon water company that's taken the market absolutely by storm. Just to give you a few quick facts of what you're going to be hearing today. First, over the last 12 months, they've been able to get in giant national retailers like 7-Eleven, Sprouts. They're launching to any other one that you probably know now. And they've sold over 5 million cans. In addition to that, Dom's been able to raise over $5 million for his company. Disclaimer, I wrote a check for $75,000, so I absolutely support Dom and very excited about what Mela is doing. However, maybe the most impressive thing about what Dom is working on is the fact that they did $1.6 million in business their first year, and last year, their second year, they did $6.8 million. So to say that he's on to something big and to say that there's going to be quite a lot that we can learn here today is, I think, an understatement. So Dom, grateful to have you here, man. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm doing great, and I appreciate your time, and I'm excited to be able to hopefully give back because, I only am here because other people were able to give back for me to learn, right? And to me to get inspiration or to actually learn like practical principles. So I'm excited to be able to give any insight I can back to your audience, Michael. And thank you for believing in us early. You did write a check to us, and I think I'm happy you did. I told you it would pay off, and hopefully we'll see that in the next couple of years for you. So thank you.
Absolutely, man. Very, very excited to have you here. Now, the story of how you got started with Mela is really interesting. So I think maybe let's start there because if I'm correct, if my understanding is correct, you didn't actually develop like the formula for Mela. Could you just give us a little bit of like the 10,000 overview of how you got involved, how this brand actually like got started from the ground up?
Yeah, it's really funny. So I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. I've started multiple companies. This was the first brand that I actually realized, and I actually realized this about myself. I started a couple companies prior in different fields, technology, random things here or there, just to try to make it work, supplements, etc. But what I realized about myself after Mela and before Mela is a lot of entrepreneurs are good at going from 0 to 1. I'm really good at going from 1 to 10. So what I realized about Mela is I was actually able to find something that already kind of had proof of concept, already had development, and see what it could be, right? So I have a huge journey, a lot to go in, and it would take hours to walk you through. But just the knowledge of all the failures actually kind of gave me all the pivots that I needed to know for Mela, right? So I actually found Mela in 2020 in a liquor store in San Diego. At that time, I was working for a beef jerky company. I helped start a beef jerky company. And the beautiful part about, which I think is great advice for any, even entrepreneur, right, is go work for somebody and get the playbook of exactly how somebody more successful than you is doing it. And I used to be very afraid to do that because I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to have my own thing. And when I took a step back and actually went and worked for someone, had a paycheck, I did help start the company, but I was being paid. It was a very weird and also awesome situation. But anyway, I was an employee technically, But what was nice about that is I was able to learn on someone else's dime. So I was able to, all the mistakes we made, they weren't hurting my paycheck. All the mistakes we made, they weren't hurting my name, right? And all the good things, I was able to learn and get that system. So I found Mela in 2020 in a liquor store in San Diego while I was working at a beef jerky company. And we can get into it now or later of how I acquired it and what made it so special to me. And there's a lot of different reasons, but essentially I acquired them in 2021. I spent the first 6 months rebranding because they weren't a company. They were just a fantastic product. They were created by basically a visionary behind, like I said, a guy who's really good at going 0 to 1. He had the idea, he had the concept, he built the foundation, and then I saw the bigger picture of how to scale it when they actually really didn't want to do that. So, yeah, that's kind of a little blur, and we can go into each and all aspects.
I'm got so many questions. That was awesome. Many, yeah. So a lot that can go in there. So I think that just to recap and dial in on a couple really interesting things. So I agree with you. Like a lot of people want to jump to being a founder. Like that's like step one in a lot of their minds. And it's like, I'm going to go build this product. I've got this idea. and I'm going to just go make it work. And I think that that's probably one of the the worst ways to go about it, and with the highest chance of failure. What you did is you actually were in it on someone else's dime, like you said. I want to talk about what you did specifically there because I know a little bit about the story.
Mm-hmm.
And then you were able to basically translate those skills into your own product. And I think that that's also something that makes your company so investable. You're like, look, I did it already. I just didn't own the company. This product's got the same thing. I'm going to just rinse, repeat, boom, boom, make it happen. Right. So I guess, could you tell me a little bit about like how you got involved with the previous company and like, as well as like what your biggest lessons were in terms of like what you learned there that you felt translated most to starting Mela?
Great question. So, okay, so it happens chance, right? It's like one of those things in life. If you're constantly taking action, you're constantly putting work out, eventually like the world will provide you opportunities, right? And it's up to you to recognize those opportunities. So up my entire life till I was like 23 or 24, I was starting these little businesses, trying to make it all work. And then I played baseball at San Diego State. So an alumni of the San Diego State baseball program, there's a guy in a family in San Diego, they produce beef. Okay. So they produce beef for like Kirkland Meat, Costco, things like that. Like literally like ribeyes and steaks and things like that. They package it, they sell it to grocery stores, etc. The owner of that company wanted to start a beef jerky brand using his meat, his family-owned meat. So he had this idea. He's like a billionaire, very incredible guy. And he's like, I want to start a beef jerky company using our beef. So he had reached out to a guy named Will Dryden, who is a connection and a friend of his. And then Will Dryden was an alumni of my San Diego State baseball team, right? So Will had reached out to our coach. I was actually playing baseball at the time. He had reached out to our coach and said, hey, I'm going to go start this beef jerky company under this big beef company umbrella. Are there any guys on the team? He's like, I'd love to give back. Are there any guys that I can come work with me and help build this? And so the coach had given him my name. We had connected. So about a year after I graduated, when it all was ready to go, me and a guy named Will Dryden, we started a beef jerky company under this umbrella of this major beef corporation, which was incredible. We had resources, we had payroll, we had benefits, we had all the stability, but we had the freedom of being entrepreneurs within this system. So it was actually like the perfect situation because he was in the same boat as me. Neither one of us knew anything about consumer products, right?
That's awesome.
Anything. And to answer your question about the things you learned that you did wrong, I mean, there's endless, right? It could have been down to how to identify products that have good margin. You know, beef jerky had no margin. So it had a lot of competition. It was a slow moving item. The price point variance depending on the channel, right? So there's an endless amount of things and knowledge you need to know depending on your industry. So I was able to like get that grasp and like get those pros and cons a million times over, all the little intricacies, which I wouldn't bore you with, but of that industry. So, and just like most industries, Michael, as you would know, it's a playbook. It's replicatable. That's why, a guy could start a software company doing this, and he basically has the set foundation if he exit this to go start another one over here. That's kind of the situation. And then, anything else that I'm missing based on that?
No, that was good. I mean,
it's a background.
I don't want to interrupt you, but like, yeah, that all makes a lot of sense. I think that one thing that people can definitely learn is the fact that like you're very open to opportunity. That's something that I see very much so in just your personality. You were told like as you were playing baseball in college, like, hey, want to try and grow this CPG brand, like this beef jerky brand, like most college students.
Have you heard of the red car theory?
I have, yeah, but why don't you describe it though?
Okay, so
I'm not sure everyone, yeah.
Yeah, naturally. So I heard this, it was at a TikTok or Instagram reel, and I heard him explain this, and I was like, holy shit, that is me. That's been me my whole life, but no one's ever been able to explain it. So the red car theory is basically if I ask Michael on this call, how many red cars have you seen drive down the street today? His answer would be, I don't know, 1, 0. He's not paying attention to it. But before the day started, if I went to Michael and I said, hey, I'm going to give you $100 for every red car you see on the way to work, he would have an exact answer. So the premise and the principle is opportunity exists all around you in every asset of life a million times over. It's literally in this room. It's this plant. It's this desk. It's whatever you assume. And if you're not looking for those opportunities when you wake up in the morning and you're not very like actively searching outward, you'll never see them. They'll just be existing all around you, right? But if somebody knows they're going to get paid to find opportunities, they're more likely to do that. So I feel like just by nature, especially in my 20s and my early 20s, I was always waking up every day like, what problem can I solve? What's out there? Who's doing something that I can make better? Like whatever the situation is, I was just very observant, you know?
I love that. Yeah,
But
I
I
first
love
heard
that.
that. I completely agree. I heard that from Tony Robbins. He's like, okay, look around your room, look at everything that's going to be green, and then shut your eyes. Tell me everything that's green. And then he's like, just kidding, tell me everything that's red. And you're like, oh, you only can think
Right.
of what's green, you know? And it's pretty hilarious because like that is actually how the brain works. You only are looking for things that you're actually, you know, open to seeing, if that makes sense. So,
Yep.
you know, and
Yep.
that actually leads into my next question that, you know, I don't know if this is just something you're born with or if this is something that can be learned. And I'm curious on your perspective, but you literally said when you were in the beginning of this that you just saw Mela at a liquor store. Okay. So I see a lot of things. I don't think twice about them. And I definitely don't think, oh, I should probably think about buying this, or I buy products and I'm never like, wow, like that was good. I should get involved with this company. You know what I mean? That's not normally my train of thinking. So explain to me a little bit more about like what actually happened there and like what were the immediate action items after that to where you were like, I should look into actually acquiring this company, because that's such a unique scenario. I don't want to skip over it. You know what I mean?
No, yeah. I mean, there's, like I said, again, so much that goes into why, but really in reality, it's kind of like if I was trying to think back of why I felt like that, what it felt like. The only thing I can articulate as to why, or as an example, is like if you meet a girl, it's like you meet a girl, there's billions of girls, right? And a lot of them could look the same or talk the same or come from the same area, but you meet one and something about it is like, I know that could be special. And it's tough to put into words why. And if you were to dig into it, there's a million reasons. In terms of Mela, the first thing he said when he met me, and I was like, "What is this?" He's like, "Oh, this is my company called Mela." I was like, "What is?" He's like, "Watermelon water." And I was like, "I never heard of that." It was like foreign. It was like, you know, you're in Chicago and you meet a girl from Venezuela, and you're like, "Oh my God, this is so different than anything I've ever experienced." Because I'm like, "What is watermelon water?" I've never heard of that. I've never seen it. I've never tried it. And like I said, I was used to selling beef jerky, which has 7 other competitors on a shelf. So I was like, I've never seen a watermelon water in my life. So I was like, yeah, whatever. Okay. Then the next process moved forward, which is he gave me a case to try and it was ice cold. And so, you know, I didn't try it in front of them. I never tried people's products in front of them in case it sucks. And I don't have to be like, oh yeah, it's so good. Anyway, so I took it home in my car, cracked it open, tried it, can I swear? Probably.
Go ahead.
I was fucking mind blown. I was like, this is incredible. It's like I've never had anything like it, and it's delicious. Okay.
Yeah.
Prior to trying it, I got the whole wherewithal about the company, their margin, their size, where it comes from. I got the origin story, and I was wooed by this story of where this product came from. To which, if you've ever heard the story of how coconut water came to the United States, it's exactly the same. Coconut water comes actually from South America. It was from 2 entrepreneurs from New York. They went down there to hang out with 2 girls. They found coconut water. They bring it up, etc. Mela's origin story is the exact same from these guys. They found it in South America and Vietnam. And the interesting part about realizing that, I was like, no human being in the United States would ever know that how to create this product and that it existed if they didn't get on an airplane and go over there. So, so that's when I was introduced to it and kind of fell in love, and I knew it could be special. But at that time, I never thought I would buy it because I wasn't in a good financial situation. It was just, I met a guy. Like that's all it was. And, you know, I didn't acquire it for almost a year later. So I just met a guy and I was like, wow, this could be big. You know, that's it at that time.
I absolutely love that. And like, I was actually, you know, going to ask like the next question, like, Dom, are you just rich? Like, we haven't really gotten into the fact that, how did you
Yep.
buy this company? What was it that actually went into this? So we should provide a little bit more context there. So for anyone that does not know, Mela was previously existed. Dom did not actually create the formulation or the processing, the manufacturing, I believe, but you scaled it all, right? So that's the whole 1 to 10, not 0 to 1 element, which is a really great way to grow business fast. So could you maybe just like give people an idea about like yourself, like how, like you said you weren't in the financial position to do it initially, and then like how did you muster it up? How did you actually negotiate a deal that was like worth it for you? And because that's a pretty bold bet to invest into a company 100% ownership, if I'm not mistaken, to make it your full new thing.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of crazy stories in my life, and just like everything, this story is probably even the craziest. Is I'm from a middle class family, like middle class in the Midwest, right? So take with that information what you want. I don't come from money. I don't have any money. My dad passed away. I never used a dollar basically of what the little money I got when my dad passed away to even buy Mela. But it helped get a cash. So here's the story. So my roommate in college, his name's Tyler Atkinson. He played for the Los Angeles Dodgers actually for a little bit after baseball, but we played baseball together in college. We're brothers, we're family, we talk every day, everything. The reason we're friends is because we were very like-minded in college, even though we both had nothing, right? So this was 2016, 2015. He pulls up this thing and starts to be obsessed with this thing called Bitcoin. So he's buying it, he's researching it, he's obsessed with it. He's looking at all of them: Cardano, XRP. At the time, what else? Shit. I mean, there was a handful of others, but not too many, right? So he was nonstop researching it in his free time. This is my best friend and roommate. So naturally, I'm like, hey, what is this? Like, what are you doing? He's like, dude, this is going to be huge. Like, you need to start investing in this. You need to start buying into this. And I was like, okay, yeah. So before I purchased Mela, 2 or 3 years leading up to the year 2020, I was buying crypto. So my biggest bag was in Cardano. So I started buying Cardano at 2 cents, and I'm talking like $500, $200, $100, $1,000, whatever I could get my hands on. So I had invested about 20 to 25,000 into it at around in a few cents. And then right when it was really starting and I was really like, oh my God, this could be huge, I called my mom. I sat my whole family down at Christmas. No one listened besides obviously my mom. But I was like, Mom, I know you like we don't have a lot of money, right? My mom had nothing. She had a 401k with like 150,000 in it. That's all she
Yeah.
had. I mean, she has assets in her house, but I was like, Mom, I need cash because if I don't execute on this right now, I'm telling you, it'll be the worst mistake of our life. Like I was that confident. This
Wow.
this was in 2019. So I was like, I am that confident. Like this is going to be fucking huge. So she sold off like an extra 20K of her 401. So I had like 40,000 total invested in the Cardano. 2020 hits, everything explodes. The nice thing about Tyler was not only did he tell me when to buy, he also has the friends that are big bag holders with Bitcoin. I'm talking the billion status. They also all talk, and he told me when to sell. So
Wow.
I got out almost at the exact right time. I made just about $1 million in crypto, which was the craziest money I've ever seen in my entire life. I was 25 or 26 at the time. Okay. So I had $1 million in crypto. All right. And then, I put in 40,000 maybe total. So at that time I was like, okay, I'm either going to start something or buy something. Right. So my first call before I even thought about what to start was I was like, I'm going to call the guy that I met at Mela and just see what he would take. So
Jeez.
I'm
That's
I'm trying to
crazy.
text them. I'm like, our texts used to be blue and now they're green. So I'm like, man, did he die or like what's going on here? So I DM'd Mela's Instagram and I said, hey, I met Spencer, yada yada yada. I get on WhatsApp with him, and now it makes sense. He's like, oh, he's in Turkey. Here's his WhatsApp phone number. So literally, dude, within 3 weeks, he took some time. He's like, I'd be interested in selling it. And I was like,
Wow.
I didn't even know what he was going to say. I just asked, and that's another like thing I've really started to realize actually a lot lately is like you get so much when you just ask. But anyway, so I just asked him, hey, what would you take? He came back to me. He's like, I'll take 360 for it. And I was like, well, what are you going to do in sales this year? And he's like, we'll do 360. So he sold it to me at about a 1x multiplier,
Wow.
which is absurd. The only reason I attest to why he sold it is because shipping container prices in 2020 with COVID, they went through the roof. So his profitability went way down. So he explained that to me. I pick up my phone and call my buddy who's an international shipper and go, hey, these shipping container prices are 17K. Is this going to last forever? And he goes, pfft. He's like, no. He's like, give it like 10 more months and they'll be back down at 1,000. Right. So I'm thinking about the entrepreneur math behind buying this company and all of the customers that I had built and all the knowledge that I had built from Baja Jerky at the time, going like, oh my God, if I buy this and I implement what I know, like
Yeah.
I didn't know Mela would get to where it is now, but I'm like, it's going to 5X from where I buy it. And that's all I
Yeah.
was going to do. That's all I want to do. I'm like, I'm going to buy this and 5X it and then sell it, which is not the case anymore. But my point is I actually paid them. I paid him in crypto. I taught him how to download a wallet while he was in Turkey. So I paid him 360,000 or something around that number in crypto. I bought their inventory and then I spent about 100 grand, my last 100 grand or so startup capital, and then I spent 100K on rebranding. So websites, packaging, and that's a long process. That takes 6 months. And that's the most vitally important piece of Mela. But I know that's
We'll get
a
into
long
that.
story, but yeah, that's the story of how I acquired it.
That is
Crazy,
crazy. That is absolutely
crazy.
insane. I mean, like I would
Yeah.
say that you take big bets, right? Like that is what is paying off for you. And I think that any entrepreneur out there that's afraid, especially anyone that's trying to build something that is venture scale, has to be willing to risk it all. Has to be willing to go to their mom and say, "Hey, mom, this is the greatest opportunity for us to make money. Give me 20 grand of your remaining one." Like that's almost 20% of her net worth, right? So
Yep.
things like that, like although are scary, and I'm sure conventional wisdom, people would disagree. Like I think in the game that we are playing of like trying to win big, you need to be able to bet big. Obviously you had the credibility and like you had reasoning behind it. It wasn't just, the step one in all of this. So to be, disclaimer there. Wow. That's crazy.
People want to be successful, and when you come from no money, you don't have that like dad or uncle or
Mm,
whatever really that's very successful, right? People don't understand until you reverse engineer how much risk you actually have to take if you want to be successful.
yeah.
Like, if you want to have $10 million in your bank account, okay, like all you got to do is if you want to scare yourself into taking big risks, do the math at what you need to do to get there, okay?
Yeah.
Somebody's like, oh, I want to have $10 million in my bank account by the time I'm 35. Oh, you want that? Okay. Well, let's walk through the math here. If you're making $1 million a year, okay, without taxes existing and without lifestyle existing, it'll take you a decade to acquire that amount of cash in your bank account. Then you
Yeah.
add taxes and then you add lifestyle is like when you really start to think of how much action and how much risk you have to take if you want to make $10 million, it should scare the shit out of you to be like, I'm not doing enough. Like, I
Wow.
am not shooting high enough because the actual math behind it should freak you the fuck out to where you're not doing enough and you have
Yeah.
to take bigger risk. And I'm a huge risk taker and I always have been. And I probably not always will be. I think as being a CEO of a company, I can't really afford, I have investors, I have shareholders, I have people's salaries. I don't take massive risk with Mela, but on the side or whatever it may be, like I'm always thinking of how you can do more with less because in your 20s you can always fail, and like every time you even fail you're going to learn from the risk you take. So I've always taken really good calculated risk. I'm not just like shooting from the hip. I'm not just like, oh,
Exactly.
I saw one YouTube video about Cardano and I put my family's money into it. It's like, no, I was up
Yeah.
till fucking 3 a.m every single day for like a year, and it took multiple years like to study this and know it. But like I saw, just like Mela, I saw the potential in crypto, and I saw honestly just the patterns of time. There'll be another bull cycle. And I think crypto is a great way to build wealth with with a lot of leverage with little capital. But anyway.
Yeah, in this day and age, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, yeah, that's phenomenal, dude. And like, I think I'm gonna hit on one other point before we kind of transition here a little bit. But like, I think that a lot of people that are starting a company do think that they need to be the one that creates everything, that creates the product, that creates like that 0 to 1, like he said. I don't even know if you know this, but one of my first companies, like I basically just white labeled existing technology. It was a med tech platform. We sold the platform. We were good at selling, but our monetization was just different than the business itself that we white labeled from. So we would go to clinics and then we would get them to run like a certain like protocol that would like they would pay that company so they were happy, but then we would make money in a totally different way. But we basically inherited the legitimacy of that brand. So I think that like people just get in this box of like, oh, I need to be the one that knows and goes to Vietnam and finds this watermelon and then creates the best tasting drink in the world. Like, I don't think that happens that often. Right? Like I think way more commonly what happens is like we see an existing product, duplicate it or like buy it and then make it way better and then have like, other competitive advantages like branding, your acquisition ability, like to sell and get placement and to retailers. I think that that's where businesses grow, one, faster, have higher success rates. And quite frankly, I think that's where the big ones honestly start nowadays.
Me too. I didn't know that about yourself, and that's awesome. That's I couldn't agree more.
Kind of interesting, right? So I guess like a quick question I was curious about, just since we work with startups obviously to help them raise capital. What gave you confidence and like at what time did you start like raising outside capital? Because like what I love about you is you bet your own money first. You were like, hey, like not only did I just buy this like with my own dollars, but like you put another, what was it, $200,000 back.
I put every single, like I still have no cash in my bank account, like at all, no crypto, nothing. Like every single dollar I made in crypto, I put into Mela. In fact, like I just turned 30 and I bought a Rolex for myself like a couple months ago, and I made $1 million in crypto at 25. I didn't even buy a fucking Rolex. I didn't buy shit. Like I didn't do anything. I didn't buy like every dollar I put into there was into Mela. I started raising cash for one reason, unfortunately, which it's something every beverage company or CPG company has to do, which is inventory, actually. Yeah. So when you start a CPG company, banks won't give you loans for inventory because you're so young. So we were scaling so fast and we couldn't get lines of credit that would support our inventory levels. And the people that could, the interest rate was like 80%. It was like absurd. I was like, the best thing to do is let's just sell pieces of the company. So we've raised $5 million and let's say 4 out of 5 million of it went into inventory purchasing, right? It's just building inventory, which you really have to do because you can't meet your level. So the confidence came honestly from just knowing the market and just being like kind of like what I said to you earlier, Michael, was like, even when you came in as an investor, I was like, look, dude, I don't know if we're going to sell for $1 billion. I don't know if we're going to sell for 300 million, but I'll tell you right now, we're going to sell for a hell of a lot bigger than where we are. So like, I will make you very happy. And to be honest, every round we do, we're raising at 40 million right now. We've raised at 40 million already. Is like the same principle applies. We got to 40 million and I'm looking at the market going, I could look out my window and there's 10 stores we're not in right here. And I'm like, dude, there's so much meat on the bone. So when I raise capital for investors, I think my superpower comes from where I come from, which is like where our area I grew up in Chicago is wealthy, but in retrospect is conservative. And I think that when I look at bringing investors on for Mela, if I don't know I can like 2x your money or Mela's going to grow, like I won't bring you in. So I know where we're at is gonna, when you're looking to raise money for investors, it's really easy when you have two things. Number one, you obviously believe in what you've built, your product, your branding, the market, whatever it may be. And number two is if you know you're going to be a hell of a lot bigger than where you are right now, even though if you don't know the end goal, that's all that matters. Because investors ask me, like I talked to a VC yesterday, and they asked me what my exit strategy was. Like, where do you want to sell? And I told them the same thing I would tell anybody, which is something most founders or CEOs wouldn't say to any VC. I said, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
like, all I focus on is like, what can I do? Where are we going to be this year, 6 months to the month? And that's it. Anything past that, I'm like, I don't fucking know. We'll figure it out when we get there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But I know we're going to be bigger than where we are. So anyway.
Dude, I love that. Yeah, I mean, I think that this is an absolute masterclass on conviction, right? So I think that, one of the main reasons that I believed what you were doing is you were just like so convicted in what you were saying. You're like, this is going to work. And if you believe that deeply, like what you just said, like we're going to sell for more than the current worth, like I feel like it just really moves people in a way to where it's like they can tell when there's self-doubt. And I feel like one of your gifts is while you might have self-doubt internally, like you also know that you're on to something big enough that's like worth going for. And you're willing to like just put it all on the line to get someone on board because you also know it's going to benefit them, right? So I think that that's a really interesting skill. So we'll transition here into the two things that I think are your absolute like top two skills. And this is where you're going to give away some secret sauce. All right.
All right.
All right. Cool. So I'll flash up like right here on the screen, after this, like some of your branding. Okay. But like that is probably the thing about Mela that is like most compelling, most exciting for me. Even like I get a can, I'm like, this is awesome. Like I want to drink this. I see your trucks driving around. What's the slogan on the trucks?
Yeah. You should taste our melons.
Yeah, exactly. Like where does this come from? How important do you think brand is for an early stage company? Because normally like most people do branding as like a secondary like measure. Like it's something they do after the fact. But you said that you invested in that like front on, and I feel like it's working quite well for you. So just take what you can from that, and then we'll go from there.
Lucky enough, the product was given to me, which is the product at the end of the day is the most important piece. 100%. You can put 2 million into branding, have the flashes. Justin Bieber could be the face of your company, but if your product sucks, it's a matter of time eventually. But as far as the branding goes, most entrepreneurs in this space, that's the two problems. They're either their product sucks and their branding's great, or their branding's ass and their product's amazing. It's like it's very rare that we've been, like, I don't know why, but that Mela hits both. But when I created Mela's branding, it needs to look different, because it puts a smile on my face because it was the best ROI I've ever made. I spent $100K on branding. Okay. 100K and like over time, a bunch of different things.
Like
it could be anything. Sales sheets, the label, obviously, the website, the iterations on the can. Like I've made 7 iterations on the can. Psychologically, I look at the market and go, okay, when I see the can, what does it need to say here? Then here, then here. Like, and how do my eyes picture like all these little intricacies on our can are literally so thought through, it's not even funny. And all those times you make those changes, you have to pay 4 designers to sit in the meeting to collaborate. It costs a lot of money. My point is the 100K that I've spent on branding overall for everything, sales sheets, what have you, photo shoots, okay, that is the best ROI I've ever made, because now all I have to do is get a product in the store and the branding sells itself. I don't need social media ads. I don't need influencers. I don't need that shit. As long as you literally see Mela on a shelf, you're like, what the fuck is that? You're like, that looks so different. You're like, it looks different. So it catches your eye, the colors, you walk up to it and you grab it, and then informationally just explain what it is to sell. And then it does. And then you're like, the amount of money Mela spends on marketing isn't even a fraction of what most other beverage companies spend on marketing, because they're spending money to educate and get attention. And our can has enough attention and education. So that would be if you were going to start a consumer product and you wanted to get in this space, that is definitely somewhere you want to invest first, like 100%.
Well, let me ask you
and
this.
I consult brands on that too. I'm like, if you don't have 50K, like I'll tell a brand, like if they come to me, they're like, what would you do? And they show me their product and it looks like shit. I'm like, first thing I would do is stop doing everything you're doing. Go fix that. because you're
Yeah.
going to fail if you don't have good branding.
I love that. And like, I think that that even might be, let's just create a hypothetical scenario. I've got a product tastes great. It's awesome. People like it, but it's not selling. Like what would you do? Like if you could try and deconstruct the process of like step one, like you said, look at the can or look at the product. What are you looking for? Is it first just like the vibrancy of it? Is it the, like you said, the education side? Like what do you do if you could put it in like a step one, step two, step three order? You know what I mean?
Yeah, step one, what we did was we looked at a celebrity. So we were like, who would be your celebrity, right? If this celebrity was a brand, who would you choose and why? And my choice was Maluma. He's a Latin singer. And I
Okay.
just see him and he's handsome, he's cool, he's suave, he's sexy, he's colorful, he's got tattoos. And, I was almost on the Bieber train, but I think Bieber's demographic or his image now has changed to what it used to be. But so we chose a guy named Maluma, and we actually found one image of him on a magazine that I'm like, that vibe is what we want to go for, which is like colorful and sexy and cool, but is also like can be drinking by men. So our first order of business is like, find who you would want the brand to emulate if there was like a person. And also it could
Okay.
be a company, like for example, if you look at, we did a whole mental workshop where it's like Apple and Samsung, right?
Yeah.
Where are we at? Samsung would be cool and innovative or whatever. Apple, I don't know. Either way, whatever the comparisons were of all
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
companies, it forces your brain to think, who do I want to be?
Mm.
What do I want? And once you go through all that first, then you can start making pivots based on your branding, depending on once you discover who you want to be, you know?
Dude, that's crazy. I literally, and I don't want to interrupt you. You're in
No, no problem.
flow, but like I would have never guessed. Let's look at a celebrity for inspiration first. Like that's a really interesting, like first step. Like you could your product almost personifies the
Yeah.
Maluma. Did you do it because of the name?
Yeah.
I mean, they're a
Yeah.
little
That
similar.
too. That
There you
too.
go.
That too.
There you
That
go.
too. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you got to get him drinking some. So I'm excited for
We're
when that
working on it.
happens.
Bad Bunny too, same thing. Like that culture is awesome. So
Man,
that's what we wanted to do is
that's so
Latin
interesting.
culture.
So your product has a personality. I would say that that's what I would try and like put that as if I were to write down a note. Product has to have personality. Who do you want it to be like? Whether it's a company that you want to aspire to like, model off of, or is it an individual? That's cool. Step two, I've got my personality. I'm going after, Justin Bieber. I'll do Justin Bieber, sure. But like, what do I do after that once we have the personality?
Yeah, so step two came from the people that I hired. I found, kind of like you said, or we were talking about a few minutes ago, to where I found the best people to take over step two, which is
Yeah.
like I let them come up with creative idea, like them create it, and then once they brought it to me, like almost like delegation of finding the best talent. I let them come to me, and then we'd make a pivot, or you know what I mean. So they would
Yeah.
really come up with the concepts, but I would be able to tell if that would be good or not, or if I liked it or not.
Okay, cool. So like once you have
Yep.
the vibe, it's really just like a brainstorming like think tank. It's like how do we find other people that can help bring this personality to life to bring it to an actual product? Like that's kind of what I was hearing there. And is that going to be like more just again on the brand side? So designers, are those the people you're looking for, or who
Yeah,
specifically
yeah,
within that? Okay.
designers, and then yourself. So,
Okay.
then I would take our design to our manufacturer, which might be step three. But I was like, what's something else we can do that's different? We're still working
Right.
on things, by the way. We're going to add a red tab to the top, which is like a
Okay.
cute little watermelon color. But I look at it going, how can we even make it more different? So our can is half matte, half gloss. So things like that, where I'm like, this will make it stand out even more. And if it's a micro percentage of standing out even more, incrementally on velocity, there'll be more sales.
I love that. I would say attention is currency, right? And that's what you've really cracked the code of. Like you're totally right. The can is unlike anything I've ever felt in terms of a product that I've held. Like it's glossy, like the text of it's glossy, or like but then it's also like this matte, like nice, comfortable feeling at the same time. It's almost like I want to hold a Mela at all times. So that's really interesting. And then you said third was manufacturing. So like what I would have assumed is most people out there, like that are listening, like you probably start with like what's possible, right? Like step one is what's possible. What's the manufacturer already got that I can do? But that's how you create a product like everyone else, from what I'm hearing. So that's step three.
Yes.
So so that's really interesting. So then you go to the manufacturer, like this is what we want. Is it possible? Is that typically what happens?
Yeah.
Or tell me about that.
And that is probably typically what happens. Like you said, my situation was different because I purchased those relationships when I bought Mela. So those guys did all that. But what I would say in terms of importance, it's not really branding, but it's margin. There's no point in creating a product. There's no point in creating a brand if you don't have margin at the end of the day. Like you need to make sure your margin in CPG, I'll just tell you, is at least 55 to 60%. If it's not, you will fail, especially in today's economy. It's tougher to raise capital, and the capital you could raise, they won't give it to you if you don't have margin. So making sure you have a high margin, and that typically comes from overseas, right? Is figuring out how to get product made overseas is better always, even if it could be made in America.
Wow, this is a masterclass, I think. I'm learning a lot. So I think that's super cool, man. And again, like, I think that, I just want to beat in on the fact that you raised $5 million during a year where people are like holding on to their pockets for dear life. Investors aren't writing checks. But what I always say is the businesses that are investable, the businesses that actually do business and deserve capital are the ones that get it, right? Like even during the
so much
downtime.
easier. Yeah. Like it was so much easier than I thought. Everyone is saying that. Yes, you're right.
Exactly. I love that, man. Very cool.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, you're right. I was very fearful because that's all I heard is like, oh, you're not going to be able to raise money, blah, 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 blah. Or everybody's cutting back. And obviously the tech world got hit the hardest.
Yeah.
And what I would say is that's why, like, dude, you have to like focus on profitability. Like, don't raise capital. Don't try to be the guy just to be on Forbes. Like, try to build a profitable, like, well thought through business, even in tech, when the money was coming in tech, and focus on that first, no matter what. And then the rest will take care of itself,
There's a lot of ego raising out there. I'll say that. They raise because they want to have a big team. They raise because they want to get in TechCrunch to talk about it. When it's like, just like do something that's not scalable first, become profitable, prove that it works. And I promise you the scale comes, right? Like you sold stuff, $1 million a year, not a lot. However, you did it in a year. That's impressive, right? The second that you probably got the first few $100,000 in sales, someone was like, Dom, here's more money for inventory. Like if you're selling it, like, it's validation that if they put their money with you, it's not going into a fire pit to disappear forever.
Our core principle is we are operationally break even, if not positive, based on our revenue. So like if we do 500K in a month, like all of our employees, all of our marketing, all that comes from profit based on what we're actually producing, which means that we could shut all growth off and we could maintain. And then the only capital we raise now is obviously for inventory, but also is just for gas. Like anything else, though, we could stop tomorrow and just run forever, you know?
I love this. Super, super cool. I think that if people followed those principles more often in their startups, doesn't matter if it's tech or biotech, whatever it is, it would just go better for them, in my opinion. Cool. So that's skill number one. So anyone that like wants to do branding, dommelawater.com, I believe, is like the masterclass to learn from him. The next thing that you have an extraordinary skill for is like your ability to land in retailers. I understand the product can't suck. Let's assume people don't build terrible products that they're trying to get into stores. Tell me a little bit about your strategy, because you mentioned it was how many stores are you currently in? Can you remind me?
Yeah, we're in about 5,000 to date. Okay. And then hopefully year 2024 will end around 25,000. But yeah, we took an unconventional approach. There's two ways to do it. You can either go straight to retail chains, like all the chains you mentioned, Sprouts, Whole Foods, Target, whatever. That's a chain. And then there's also like California and New York are famous for this, right? There's 6,000 or 7,000 bodegas in New York. Every single one of those bodegas is family owned. So the decision maker's in the building. So you can get new accounts every day if you're willing to grind. Same with California, this works the same way. So those are called independent independent stores. So
Got
we
it.
actually took the approach where we went indie first and then made so much noise in indie that the chains were like, what is this? We want it too. So we
Wow.
went backwards. Some companies do it the opposite. Some company, they create a product and they go just after Sprouts and Whole Foods right away. The nice thing about going to, like, let's look at Publix, right?
Hmm.
Publix is 1,300 stores. So when you get Publix, you get 1,300 stores overnight. Okay. But to get 1,300 stores in New York, you have to have a whole sales team. You got to go door to door to door to door to door. So there is two ways to skin a cat, and we just took the approach of let's go earn it and let's go make so much noise by grunt and hard work and
Mm.
brick by brick mentality that these other chains have no choice but to be like, I want that too,
I
you
love
know?
that.
And so that's, yeah, it was like kind of a representation of me and who I was as a guy, but both strategies are fine.
Yeah, you're hitting the streets. You're like, look, we're gonna get in some stores. We're gonna sell this, come hell or high water,
Right.
right? Like you're going out making the connection yourself, literally. I know that. Dang, that's crazy. Because I'll tell you this. Like I hear a lot of times for product-based businesses that they're always like, oh well, I'm just waiting for Sprouts or I'm just waiting for Target. Like
Yeah.
I'm in conversation with, and it's like, why are you fucking waiting? Like
Waiting. Yeah.
there is no benefit to waiting to sell your stuff. So like that is awesome. So you're literally going to these small guys. Are they? I imagine they're way easier to get in, right? Like you're talking straight to the
Yeah.
decision maker. Like tell me a
It
little bit
could be
about
that
like
day.
give me the pitch, Dom. I own a bodega, as you say. Like I own a store, and I'm like, hi Dom, what
Yeah,
products
so
do
it's
you
been a
have?
while. It's been a while. I can still turn it on.
Turn it
But
on.
basically, you walk in the store and you say, and you create false sense. The first thing I would do is create false sense big. Like, hey, have you guys heard of Mela yet? And they're like, no. And be like, oh, that's so weird. Like, we're in every single, if you're in Laguna Beach, we're in every single store in Laguna Beach. You haven't heard of it? We're just popping in because you were like one of the last stores we don't have. You could have none. You lie. You need to lie, right?
Okay.
That's how you constantly create this false sense of desire or whatever, and you just go door to door to door. You say, oh, this is our product, Mela. I'm surprised you haven't heard of it. We're in every single store in Laguna Beach. It's all it is watermelon water. Like, where in your fridge is your watermelon water right now? And there's no
Hmm.
competition, so they'll say, oh, we don't have one. You have a can in your hand, you shake it, you crack it, you try it, they're mind blown, and then you go, by the way, it's only $3.49 on a shelf, your cost is X, your margin is 40%. We use X distributor. I'm going to give you a case for free to try out. When it sells and you're ready, you can rebuy from our distributor. They're like, perfect. And then if
Ooh.
the product
Okay.
doesn't work in a store, like, a lot of store owners are just, honestly, they're just assholes, or they just are like, oh, it didn't work or whatever. And that's fine. There's 200,000 stores. If a
Yeah.
couple of them are like, hey, it's not working, my customers didn't like it, I had some people try it, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Hmm.
On to the next, and you just do the same thing. And then, there will be a large percentage of stores that do like it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's like, you know, that's more widespread than store owners. I think that that's like investors. That's going to be
Mm-hmm.
all customers for anyone. Some people are going to like your stuff and some people aren't. And that's
Mm-hmm.
okay. I think that that is literally just business, right? So you got to just keep pushing forward and find the people that do believe and do want to back what you're doing. So that's really interesting. Anything else that you would recommend in terms of like how to sell and get into retailers for any CPG product that's like listening? They're like, hey, like I just need to get more so that we're able to show more traction for our business. Is there anything else that you'd recommend?
No, really, just that's the beautiful part about this business, Michael, is, in tech or a lot of other industries, your gatekeeper is really intelligent. I'm not trying to say people in my industry aren't intelligent, but in somewhat they are. There's a lot of, most other industries, your gatekeeper is really hard to get a hold of, and they're really smart, and they make a shitload of money, and they have one, payroll guy, right? In our industry, if you work hard, you can make it just by brute force because
Hmm.
you're dealing with liquor store owners. If you just look at liquor stores, New York is a bodega city, right? If you could get in 6,000 liquor stores and all owners of those liquor stores make, maybe 100K if they own multiple stores, but they're not like Harvard educated, they're not assholes, and you're just selling a product. Like
Wow.
it's not rocket science. So if you are willing to work hard in CPG and you have a product that fits well in convenience, you will make it. It's literally a matter of your failure is because you weren't working hard enough to a certain extent. If all the other boxes check, right? The
Yeah.
branding, the product, the price point, the margin, those boxes check and you fail, it's because you literally because you weren't getting in stores. If that's why you fail, there's no excuse. Like you're
Wow.
just not grinding hard enough. Get in your car and go to 15 stores a day every single day for a year. And if you still are going to fail, that's on you.
And I think that,
Anyway.
the unfortunate truth is a lot of people aren't willing to do that. They say they are, they say they are, but then they go and they try and raise money to hire a sales team to do that. When it's like, no, you do that, you prove that it works, and then I promise you, raising money and then duplicating that process is way, way
Easy.
easier. Piece of cake.
Very easy.
Any last things that you would give in terms of like advice or like mistakes that you're like, you need to avoid this for other founders that are trying to scale their, product of really any kind? Like, what have you run into that you like look back at and you're like, wow, I really, I really messed that up. Watch out.
Yeah, I would say let's talk equity. Okay, a good thing that I did is I never raised more capital than I needed for a 4 month run rate, right? A lot of people in the world, they'll tell you like you need an 18-month run rate. So you need to raise $2 million at a $10 million valuation. Well, in
Mm,
reality, do you need $1 million sitting in your bank account for a year? What is that going to do you? If you trust yourself, you trust your product, you trust your hustle, okay? The better thing to do is you cut that number in a fourth and you take 500K, okay? And you have just what you need for a couple months. And then in that couple months, you execute, execute, execute. You can go back to those same investors or new investors, whatever it may be, and re-raise capital at literally double. Like especially when you're talking between the
yeah.
1 million to 10 million range, you know how easy it is to double your valuation from 2 million to 4 million. It's literally just a couple customers, a couple contracts, some
Not
progress
wrong.
if you're in tech, some build outs, and you can do that in 5 months. So it's way better to keep doing that than raising a ton of capital at a lower valuation because you're going to lose a shitload of equity as a founder. And a lot of founders of especially beverage companies, like the founder of Olipop or Poppy, whatever it may be, they have like a few percent left. Yeah, they're worth a billion, but they only have a few percent left. If Mela's worth a billion, I'll have a lot of percentage, right? So,
You're like a
yeah,
lot.
I have,
I own a lot of
yeah, a
those
lot.
percentages.
I have about 45% left, right? That's the good thing I did. And the bad thing I did is the exact opposite of that, which is I actually gave too much equity away to people who shouldn't have gotten it out of maybe the kindness of my heart or strategic people that I was like, I should have waited. I should have given less and I should have
Mm,
taken less and given less because now I look at it going like realistically, I should have about 10% more. Granted,
yeah.
I'm going to make a lot of money, especially when you don't really come from a lot. Like if I make $100 million, who gives a shit if it's 100 or 90 or 80 or 130? It's like that's on honestly all on God. Like
Yeah.
that's anything above, a couple million that's on God. So I'm not mad about it. I would just say that was the thing I did good and bad.
And I think that's a super valuable lesson. So I think that, again, that only works for businesses that are able to produce revenue. So like what Dom did really well and like what everyone should hopefully take from this is like, if you have so much validation, so much product market fit at such an early stage of your company, raising money is not hard. Like I literally texted, Mike about this. I think I talked to you for like 15 minutes and then that was when I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
sounds good. Like, boom, here you go. And I think that that's actually, a really good model of raising money. Like you said, it's kind of like you just make your business desirable. Easier said than done, obviously. It takes a lot of work, way more stressful, I would imagine, for you.
Way more
However,
stress.
however, if you want to retain, more equity, it's not a bad idea because, I mean, what are you guys raising at for this next few million that you're going to be raising? What valuation are you trying to raise at?
Yeah, so we're still raising at 40. We've been raising at 40 since August, but that number is going to double faster than you can freaking spell 40 million. if we can withstand our cash till June. So we're very
Yeah.
seasonal, right? So we did 6.8 last year. We think we can do, it's literally on my whiteboard, I think we can do between 20 to 30 this year. So if we finish that year, if shit, we'll probably be able to raise at like 80 million by August, which is a 2x. And
Yeah.
then by January, December of the end of the year, if we do finish at 25 million in sales, we could raise by 100. So we're in a peculiar time right now, but I mean, $40 million valuation in 2 years is pretty damn good. So I'm not mad at it.
Phenomenal valuation, dude. Like, really cool.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very exciting stuff. And then that was going to be, I guess, one of my last questions as we wrap up here. What's next for Mela? Like, what are your big goals? I know you said, I don't know, to the big investor you were just speaking with, but for real, like, this year you said you're growing 20 to 30 mil rev. That's great. Do you want to, like, what is the next big thing that's keeping you driving forward and excited about that next step? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think you nailed it, and I think we talked about it earlier, which is like, what KPI can I associate with a goal that's in my control? And the only thing that's in my control is like what we talked about earlier, is you're not working hard enough if you don't hit this KPI, which is number of doors. So our goal this year is 25,000 doors. We want to hit that KPI because we think it's attainable based on hard work and in our control. And then the rest is history, whether it's 20 million in sales, 30, 40, 50, or 10. Like, if we hit that goal, we have a pretty good, idea of what that could produce. But I set goals based on what's in my control. Anything else, you can't control. Can't control losing stores, can't control getting stores, but you can control your hard work, which is how many doors are you in. And so that's kind of like how I set my goals, and that's our goal this year.
Dude,
25,000.
I absolutely love that. I
actually have this really cool thing too. I wish maybe I can show you.
Yeah. Let's see what we got. All right, here.
So do you see that little counter right here?
The counter.
It's like a counter, like a ticket counter, like a ticket thing.
Oh, yeah.
Here, I'll bring it over actually. This is what it looks like. See this?
Yep, I gotcha.
So these are like little number tickets, right?
Okay.
And so there's this really cool company. I actually got everyone in my company that for Christmas. And what that does is it connects to your internet. We're setting it up right now. But that ticket counter, it live ticks how many accounts we're in. So I'll be sitting here, and every time we get an account in our software, in our system, that'll just go tick, 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 tick,
I
tick.
love that.
And so by the end of that year, this year we want that number to be 25,000. But that's a really
huge.
cool. That's our goal.
Wow. This was a masterclass, Dom. Like, there's a lot to learn from this, and like, anyone who is building an early stage company should be trying to follow in your footsteps to get to the point that you're at right now, where you're raising out a $40 million valuation. You're even talking in these numbers to where you're like, next we're going to be at a $100 million valuation. Maybe we'll sell for $1 billion. IPO, who knows, right? Like, there's so many different exciting things, which is why we love the space that we're in. If you enjoyed this interview, obviously give Dom some love. I'll drop his Instagram, all of your socials right here too for Mela. Buy yourself a case of Mela water. Give yourself a taste.
Amazon.
Give yourself a taste of the watermelon water that you've never had. If you've never had it, that's product market fit right there. No other competitors.
Yeah,
so
perfect.
Do that. Hit like, subscribe, share this video with a founder that you think would be useful for. And we'll wrap up here. Thank you so much, Dom. Any last words?
Thank you for having me,
off?
Michael. Yeah, just thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for allowing me to talk about it. It's been great. I really appreciate all your help and being an investor as well. Thank you for believing in us.